which helps in a specific cellular processes. These transfers ADP ribose group on a specific acceptor protein. The main role is that they serve as a transcriptional cofactor, modulates chromatin structure resulting in chromatin relaxation, enabling replication, participates in cell death mechanisms. PARP1 promotes the expression of pro-inflammatory genes such as interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor, and they helps in single-stranded break DNA damage repair. Before the role of PARP inhibitors in homologous recombination pathway, they were developed as chemosensitizers and radiosensitizers. Nicotinamide was the first PARP inhibitor that was identified in 1971. Out of the 5 PARP inhibitor until now tested, only 3 PARP inhibitors that are FDA approved, that is niraparib, olaparib, and rucaparib. Olaparib, niraparib, and rucaparib, these traps PARP 100-folds more efficiently than veliparib, while talazoparib appears to be the most potent PARP trapper studied so far. But we have only 3 FDA approved that are currently used in clinical practice. We will discuss homologous recombination pathway. Homologous recombination repair pathway is a mechanism of repair during mid S phase and mid G2 phase of cell cycle, which requires functional BRCA proteins for repairing double-stranded breaks. Then BRCA1 and BRCA2, these two genes help in double-stranded break DNA repair. BRCA1 has an active role in signaling DNA damage and cell cycle checkpoint regulation, while BRCA2, it helps in assembly of essential recombination enzyme like RAD51. Now we can see that basically there are 2 major intranuclear pathways for repair. One is single-stranded break repair, then double-stranded break repair. For single-stranded break repair, there are 4 major pathways: base excision repair, nucleotide excision repair, mismatch repair, and translesional synthesis. For base excision repair, the main genes that works are PARP genes and XCCR genes. For nucleotide excision repair genes, mostly there are ECCR genes that work, and for mismatch repair, there are MSH, MLH, PMS1, PMS2 genes, and for non-homologous end joining, and for double-stranded break repair, the major pathway is homologous recombination repair pathway that includes BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, and that RAD51, RAD51, RAD50 genes, ATM gene, PLAP2 gene, these are the homologous recombination repair pathway genes. And base excision repair pathway is a major single-stranded break repair pathway, is a major single-stranded DNA repair, while homologous recombination is a main double-stranded repair machinery in the cells. PARPs are enzymes that becomes activated by binding to DNA breaks. Under normal conditions, in the absence of PARP inhibitors, when DNA is damaged, PARP enzymes bind to the site of DNA damage and catalyzes the synthesis of ADP ribose polymers that recreate DNA repair proteins. There is process called autoperylation. In autoperylation, basically PARP enzymes bind to the single-stranded break DNA, and when proteins and when DNA repair proteins came, they dissociate from that damaged DNA, which helps in DNA repair. If the PARP do not, if the PARP enzyme do not dissociate from that, then it forms a PARP DNA complex, which stop further DNA damage, which stop further DNA damage repair. So basically there are 3 major pathways by which PARP inhibitors work. The main pathway is inhibition of base excision repair pathway. In this, when single-stranded break occur in a DNA, then PARP1 enzymes came to assist in repair for that. But if we use to give PARP inhibitors drug, then PARP inhibitors drug, these causes blockage of PARP1, and the single-stranded break converts into double-stranded break. If this double-stranded break is repaired by now HR pathway, but if there are cells in which HR pathway is also deficient, then the cell death occur. So this is the main pathway. Second pathway is double-stranded break repair. In this double-stranded break repair, if the PARP inhibitors acts on a single-stranded break, if the PARP inhibitors acts on single-stranded break, then it gets into double-stranded break. Then if HR pathway is deficient, then non-homologous end joining pathway starts to act. And if non-homologous end joining pathway starts to act for repairing of double-stranded break, then it causes error-prone DNA repair, which leads to cell death. And the third mechanism, that is the formation of PARP DNA complexes, which I have told previously that when autoperylation occurs, autoperylation causes dissociation of PARP enzymes from the damaged DNA. But if this dissociation doesn't occur, then PARP DNA complexes form and this causes cell death. This is called PARP trapping. So basically we have three mechanisms by which PARP acts. One is inhibition of base excision repair, second is upregulation of non-homologous end joining pathway, and third is PARP trapping. Then there is a mechanism called synthetic lethality. Synthetic lethality means there are two, if there is single defect, then cell can survive. But if there are two defects simultaneously, then cell can't survive. This happens with the HRD cells. In HRD cells, first we used to inhibit PARP by giving PARP inhibitors. Then second is if their HR enzymes are also deficient, then double stranded break also gets hampered, so which leads to cell death. So the condition in which two complementary and independent genetic hits that can be tolerated individually, but if they occur together causes cell death. If in the same cell BRCA proteins are also deficient, double stranded breaks are repaired by non-homologous end joining process, thus resulting in chromosomal instability, cell cycle arrest, and apoptosis. Then there are certain PARP inhibitor resistance mechanism. The main mechanism is the secondary reversion mutation, that is the restoration of the BRCA open reading frame, and BRCA starts functioning normally. Other is reversal of BRCA promoter methylation, hyperactivation of non-homologous end joining pathway, loss of the p53 protein. If the normally p53 promotes non-homologous end joining repair, its loss may partially restore homologous recombination pathway, reduced recruitment of mRNA complex, upregulation of drug efflux pump, and phosphorylation of PARP1. Then what is BRCA1 and BRCA2? Around 10 to 14% of ovarian cancers are due to BRCA1. Most hereditary ovarian cancers are due to deleterious germline BRCA mutation, that is 15% is alteration in BRCA genes may also occur through somatic mutations or epigenetic silencing. Germline or somatic mutation in different homologous recombination genes such as ATM, CHEK2, BRIP1, RAD51C, and PALP2 are associated with a moderate susceptibility to epithelial ovarian cancer. These also confers some sensitivity to PARP inhibitors. These germline mutations are autosomal dominant, so pedigree analysis is needed. The lifetime risk for developing breast cancer with BRCA1 is 80% and ovarian cancer is 50%. With BRCA2, the lifetime risk of developing breast cancer is 50% and ovarian cancer is 20%. By NCCN recommends that germline and somatic BRCA1-2 mutation testing is strongly recommended in all epithelial ovarian cancer patients. If in the absence of BRCA mutation, HRD testing may be considered. The clinical hallmarks of BRCA mutated ovarian cancer is they occur approximately 10 years younger than sporadic tumors, include platinum chemotherapy sensitivity, long treatment-free intervals before relapse, sensitivity to PARP inhibitors, and improved overall survival. NCCN also recommends risk-reducing salpingo-oophorectomy at 35 to 40 years for BRCA1 and 40 to 45 years for BRCA2. For those patients who are not elected for risk-reducing salpingo-oophorectomy, TVS combined with CA125 may be considered at age starting from 30 to 35 years. Then this is hereditary testing for ovarian susceptibility genes. If there is a personal history of epithelial ovarian cancer, including fallopian tube or peritoneal cancer at any age, or there is family history of cancer in first or second degree relative with epithelial ovarian cancer at any age, and third is unaffected individual who otherwise had a probability score of more than 5% of harboring BRCA mutation. It is tested by Tyrer-Cuzick or BRCA Pro test. These are three FDA approved drugs: olaparib, niraparib, and rucaparib. The brand name olaparib is Lynparza, for niraparib it is Zejula, and for rucaparib it is Rubraca. Dosing for olaparib is 300 mg BD per orally. Niraparib is 300 mg OD per orally, but there is dose if the patient body weight is less than 77 kg or platelet count is less than 1.5 lakhs, then dose can be reduced to 200 mg OD. For rucaparib, it is 600 mg BD. Major side effects of these PARP inhibitors are generally non-hematological, like nausea, fatigue, vomiting, but there are warning adverse effects. One is the myelodysplastic syndrome or acute myeloid leukemia, that is there is almost around 1% of risk and it is fatal complication. Other is pneumonitis, embryo-fetal toxicity. With niraparib, there is major risk of bone marrow suppression, that is around 25% studied in trials. Another is hypertension and hypertensive crisis. Niraparib, there is also recommendation that that when starting niraparib, there is monitoring. CBC monitoring should be done every week for the first month, then monthly for the next 11 months, and periodically after this time. Then we will study trials. First, we will study PARP inhibitors in first line settings. In first line settings, we used to give PARP inhibitors for maintenance therapy after we have completed our adjuvant treatment or first induction cycle. First is the SOLO-1 trial that compares olaparib versus placebo at first-line maintenance in high-grade ovarian cancer who had completed platinum-based chemotherapy and had achieved complete response or partial response. They have recruited all patients with germline or somatic BRCA mutation, and they have started olaparib 300 mg BD versus placebo. Treatment was continued until progressive disease or no evidence of disease at 2 years. Primary endpoint studied was progression-free survival. They found that the progression-free survival, there was significant increase in progression-free survival with the olaparib group. That is, the hazard ratio is 0.33, and there is 70% increase in around 70% increase of survival with increase in progression-free survival with olaparib group than in placebo group. This is the niraparib study. It is the PRIMA trial. It is it is comparison. PRIMA trial. It is use of niraparib in patient with newly diagnosed advanced ovarian cancer. It is a phase 3 trial. In May, they recruited newly diagnosed ovarian cancer which have already responded to first line chemo, already achieved complete response or partial response. Niraparib 300 milligram OD or placebo is used, then treatment is continued for 36 months or until progressive disease. Primary endpoint studies or progression. They also found that there is in the PRIMA study they divided population into some subgroup analysis like in HRD group, BRCA mutated group, and homologous recombination proficient group. So what they found is that there is increase in progression-free survival in all the groups, irrespective of BRCA mutation or without BRCA mutation. As we see that in BRCA mutation, there is hazard ratio of 0.4. In HRD group, it is 0.43, and in homologous recombination proficient group, it is 0.68. So they concluded that there's benefit of niraparib irrespective of BRCA mutation. Another is another trial that was studied is combination of olaparib plus bevacizumab as a first-line maintenance in ovarian cancer. It is a randomized phase 3 trial, also called as PAOLA trial. It is newly diagnosed advanced stage 3 to 4 ovarian cancer who had undergone upfront or interval surgery and achieved complete response or partial response to platinum-based chemotherapy plus bevacizumab. After they already received bevacizumab initially, and then they were randomized into two groups. First group received olaparib plus bevacizumab, and another group received placebo plus bevacizumab. Treatment was continued for 2 years, and primary endpoint assessed was progression-free survival. So what they found is that by addition of olaparib plus bevacizumab group, there is significant improvement in progression-free survival with hazard ratio of 0.31, and there was also improvement in significant improvement in BRCA mutated population than in comparison to HRD population. So they concluded that the addition of maintenance olaparib provided a significant progression-free survival benefit, which was substantial in patients with HRD positive tumors, including those without a BRCA mutation. Fourth is the VILIA trial. Veliparib is still not FDA approved, but there was a phase 3. There was a phase 3 randomized control trial in which they give carboplatin plus paclitaxel plus veliparib, followed by three groups were made. In one group there was veliparib throughout group, in which the chemotherapy plus veliparib was given an induction in combination chemotherapy followed by maintenance veliparib. Second group is carboplatin plus paclitaxel plus veliparib followed by placebo, and third group was carboplatin plus paclitaxel plus in third group I've made some mistake. Its third group was carboplatin plus paclitaxel plus placebo followed by placebo. So first group was veliparib throughout group, second group was combination followed by placebo, and third group was throughout placebo. So the progression-free survival, when the comparison of veliparib throughout versus control group for studies, hazard ratio was 0.68, and when it was compared from veliparib combination only, जिसमें कि they have given only in starting phase and they have not given in maintenance phase, hazard ratio was 1.07. It was compared for BRCA mutated population and HRD population. So in veliparib throughout group there was significant increase in progression-free survival with hazard ratio of 0.44. While when we compare with the placebo group, the hazard ratio, there was no significant increase in progression-free survival. So what they have said कि carboplatin, paclitaxel and veliparib induction therapy followed by veliparib maintenance therapy led to significantly longer progression-free survival than carboplatin plus paclitaxel induction therapy alone. After these 4 trials, the recommendations were made for first line settings. So we have now there are 4 groups. 4 groups were made. First thing is that when we have to start PARP inhibitor, there should be either complete response and partial response, and all patients should be platinum sensitive. So for newly diagnosed stage 2 to stage 4 FIGO ovarian cancer, if BRCA mutation status is present, then we have 3 recommended options. Either we can give olaparib, we can give bevacizumab plus olaparib, or niraparib. So if bevacizumab initially was used in induction therapy, if used in induction therapy, then it can be used as continuation therapy in maintenance therapy. It is FDA recommendation, but NCCN doesn't recommend bevacizumab as for the continuation therapy. NCCN recommends that for BRCA mutated ovarian cancer in FIGO stage 2 to 4, giving olaparib and niraparib. This is NCCN category 1. While if we add olaparib, then it becomes category 2A. While FDA recommends olaparib, then if the BRCA status is unknown in stage 2 to 4 ovarian cancer, so then it is 2A recommendation by NCCN to start PARP inhibitors, but FDA recommends PARP inhibitors for wild or unknown BRCA mutated ovarian cancer. In recurrent settings, one is the NOVA trial that compares niraparib maintenance therapy in platinum sensitive recurrent ovarian cancer. In NOVA trial, high grade serous carcinoma already they have completed more than 2 lines of platinum chemotherapy and achieved a complete response and partial response. So the population was divided into germline BRCA mutated and non-germline BRCA mutated. In germline BRCA mutated, 2 subgroups were made, germline and non-germline BRCA mutated. Then they were given niraparib versus placebo, and the treatment was continued until disease progression or toxicity. Primary endpoint studied was progression-free survival. So what they found that among patients with platinum sensitive recurrent ovarian cancer, the median duration of progression-free survival was significantly longer among those receiving niraparib than those receiving placebo, regardless of the presence or absence of germline BRCA mutation or HRD status. Another is the study of rucaparib, that is ARIEL 3 trial. It is a randomized phase 3 trial. It was studied in platinum sensitive high grade serous or endometrioid ovarian cancers who have received at least 2 chemotherapy regimes, had CA125 concentration of less than upper limit of normal. They were divided into rucaparib versus placebo, and treatment was continued as 28-day cycles until disease progression or death. Primary endpoint studied was PFS. What they found is that rucaparib significantly improved progression-free survival in patients with platinum-sensitive ovarian cancer who had achieved a complete response or partial response to second line or later platinum-based chemotherapy. We have seen, as we are seeing, that the hazard ratio is significant in all the 3 groups. In BRCA mutated is 0.23, in HRD population it is 0.32, and in overall population it is 0.36. Then another maintenance trial is SOLO 2 trial. It is studied olaparib versus placebo in a platinum sensitive relapse high grade ovarian cancer who had completed 2 lines of platinum therapy. SOLO 2 trial, in SOLO 1 trial the olaparib was used in capsule form, but in SOLO 2 trial the tablets formulation was used rather than capsule formulation. The capsule formulation, the tablet formulation, it basically causes decrease in number of tablets which we can give and improve patient satisfaction with these tablets. So the SOLO-2 trial, the hazard ratio was 0.3. The concluded that olaparib tablet maintenance treatment provided a statistically significant progression-free survival improvement in patients with platinum-sensitive relapsed ovarian cancer and also BRCA1/2 mutated patients population. Another is the AVA-NOVO trial. It compares niraparib plus bevacizumab versus niraparib in high-grade serous or endometrial platinum-sensitive ovarian cancer. The treatment was continued until disease progression or unacceptable toxicity. Previous treatment with bevacizumab or first-line maintenance PARP inhibitor was permitted. In the AVA-NOVA trial, it showed a significant improvement in progression-free survival with the combination of niraparib plus bevacizumab compared with niraparib alone, which was observed irrespective of homologous recombination deficiency status or chemotherapy-free interval. As we have seen that the hazard ratio, all are clinically significant, all the groups. In overall population, it is 0.3. In HRD positive, 0.38. If the chemotherapy-free interval is 6 to 12 months, hazard ratio is 0.29. And if the chemotherapy-free interval is more than 12 months, hazard ratio is 0.42. Then another is the SOLO-3 trial. SOLO-3 trial is basically, in this we have used PARP inhibitor in a treatment for the treatment of recurrent ovarian cancers. In this, all germline BRCA mutated platinum sensitive relapsed ovarian cancer were recruited, and they were divided into either olaparib 300 milligram BD or physician choice single agent non-platinum chemotherapy like pegylated liposomal doxorubicin, paclitaxel, gemcitabine or topotecan. Treatment was continued until disease progression or unacceptable toxicity. Primary endpoint studied was overall response rate and secondary endpoint was PFS. And we are seeing here that in the olaparib group, their objective response rate is 72% comparison to 51% chemotherapy group with the odds ratio of 2.53. P-value is 0.0. PFS, increase in PFS, it is in olaparib group is 13.4 months, while in chemotherapy group it is 9.2 with the hazard ratio of 0.49. If another is if prior 2 or 3 chemotherapy regimes are used, then olaparib is better. If 4 or more chemotherapy regimes are used, then single agent chemotherapy is better than olaparib. So they say that olaparib significantly result in statistically significant clinically relevant improvement in overall response rate and PFS compared with non-platinum chemotherapy in patients who had received at least 2 prior lines of platinum-based chemotherapy. And after these trials, FDA and NCCN recommendations were made. They say that for maintenance therapy, olaparib, rucaparib and niraparib both can be given if recurrent cancer who are in complete response or partial response to platinum-based chemotherapy. But NCCN says for maintenance, at least patient should have received 2 or more lines of prior chemotherapy. For treatment, olaparib and rucaparib are recommended. For olaparib, for treatment, patient should be germline BRCA mutated and they have received 3 or more lines of chemotherapy, while for rucaparib, 2 or more lines of chemotherapy. 2 more trials which are published recently in April 2022. One is the CLEO trial. In CLEO trial, the olaparib was used as a treatment compared with olaparib monotherapy compared with physician choice chemotherapy. In this, we used all platinums. In this, platinum sensitive or platinum resistant ovarian cancers were taken. So overall, that olaparib monotherapy showed overall an equal response rate in relapsed ovarian cancer compared with chemotherapy. In platinum resistant ovarian cancer, overall response rate and time to first progression of disease tended to be higher with olaparib than with chemotherapy. Ola treatment seemed to be more effective than chemotherapy. Another is the Ariel 4 trial. It is published in Lancet Oncology in April 2022. In this, there is recurrent BRCA1 mutated or BRCA2 mutated ovarian carcinoma were recruited who had received 2 or more previous chemotherapy regimes. So, the patients were divided into oral rucaparib versus physician choice chemotherapy. Primary endpoint was progression-free survival. So, the hazard ratio, the median PFS for rucaparib is 7.4 months. With chemotherapy, it is 5.7 months with hazard ratio of 0.67. So they concluded that rucaparib is an alternative treatment option to chemotherapy for patients with relapsed BRCA1 mutated or BRCA2 mutated ovarian carcinoma. And there are certain ongoing trials of PARP inhibitors with immunotherapy. One trial has already completed, that is Javelin or Ovarian 100 trial. In this, They use avelumab plus chemotherapy followed by avelumab plus talazoparib, but the trial was terminated at interim analysis due to futility and efficacy is no longer being assessed. Another 4 trials with immunotherapy are going on: ANGOT OV44 or first trial, Athena trial, ANGOT OV46 trial, and message. Germline BRCA testing is recommended in all patients of epithelial, ovarian or fallopian tube or peritoneal cancers. In germline or somatic BRCA testing, PARP inhibitors, olaparib or niraparib can be used in maintenance setting after first-line chemotherapy after achieving complete response or partial response in FIGO stage 2 to 4. In BRCA wild type or unknown status, niraparib can be considered, that is 2A recommendation by NCCN. In recurrent settings, PARP inhibitor can be used for maintenance after complete response or partial response with at least 2 lines of platinum-based chemotherapy. Treatment with PARP inhibitor is recommended only in germline BRCA mutated patient after 3 or more lines of chemotherapy.
So it was quite a good presentation, Roli. I must
Thank you, ma'am.
compliment you. But ये बताओ मुझे कि overall how much is the survival advantage you gain by giving these inhibitors as a maintenance therapy in recurrent settings, approximately?
Ma'am, there is significant increase in progression-free survival in all the studies.
No,
In fact,
significant I understand, but you tell me
yes,
in months,
ma'am.
approximately.
Ma'am, for olaparib, that was solo one trial. The first line setting was used. It was around 38 months difference was the highest that was studied. That was in solo one trial, and they gained around 38 month difference with olaparib versus placebo.
38 months is very significant.
Yeah,
3
and they have
years.
said yes, and they have said there is 70% increase in progression.
This PARP inhibitors, they are saying in spite of irrespective of BRCA mutation or HRD, they are showing better response. So, but yet, according to NCCN, they are not categorized as the recommendation. Only in BRCA they are probably recommended.
Yes,
What could be the reason that they are saying that you can use PARP inhibitor in any ovarian cancer? Probably
FDA is recommending. FDA is recommending, but NCCN is not
FDA
recommending.
is actually recommending that you can use PARP inhibitor in any stage of any ovarian cancer, but NCCN is not recommending like that.
NCCN is not recommending. I think more study trials are needed for that. We can comment. We can use in homologous recombination proficient population or not.
Based on this trials on olaparib, can it be taken over in other cancers which has BRCA mutations, or as they are saying, without BRCA mutations also olaparib is performing better than placebo. So probably we can in future. They are saying it can be used in any cancer.
I have read FDA recommendation for breast cancer and prostate cancer. For in triple negative breast cancer, they are recommending PARP inhibitors. In germline BRCA mutated and triple negative breast cancers, PARP inhibitors is recommended, and in prostate cancer that are castration resistant, they are giving PARP inhibitor. But the FDA is recommending olaparib for that. Pancreatic cancer is under study, that it is not recommended for pancreatic cancer.
The reason for this NCCN recommendation not being there, Mainak, is that majority of the trials, especially the solo trials, have been exclusively conducted in the BRCA mutated patients. So if you look at the niraparib data, the niraparib data is the only data which is there, which shows that it can be given irrespective of mutations. So the major 3 trials, the solo 1, 2, and 3, all 3 are in specifically BRCA mutated patients, germline BRCA mutation, not even somatic BRCA mutation. So they are specifically in germline BRCA mutation. So if you look at the data from the clinical trials, the majority of the data is in the mutated patients, and there is very little data which is available in the non-mutated patients. So even NCCN is recommending treatment with olaparib in recurrent disease after 2 lines of chemotherapy, BRCA mutated, after failures of 2 lines of platinum-based chemotherapy. But the evidence level is 2A. Recommendation level is 2A. So it is only one indication by NCCN, that is 2 prior lines of failed chemotherapy in a BRCA mutated, in an even irrespective of BRCA mutation. And pancreatic cancer, the trials are ongoing. So probably by the year end, we will have the data on the pancreatic cancers also.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was looking through these trials, the Solo 1, 2, 3, Ariel, and Nova. I found that almost most of them were sponsored by AstraZeneca or some company who are producing this olaparib. So can there be a hint of bias in this study? Can be there a hint of bias, or we need further studies based on
Most
non-sponsored studies?
most of the studies that you are reading on any molecule are pharma sponsored trials.
Because other don't have that molecule with them.
Other don't have the molecule with them.
But should we look at this study with pinch of salt?
FDA has a very stringent criteria of monitoring the clinical trials, though there are drugs which has been withdrawn from the market or the indications have been withdrawn. Some of the PDL1 inhibitors are the current ones which has been withdrawn, where the indications has been withdrawn by FDA last year. So FDA has a very good system of approving and monitoring. They have an independent body which evaluates all the evidence and give recommendation.